Wow. I'm always overwhelmed about our intro. Welcome, Dina, to the, let's say, combo of the three of us. It's fantastic to have you here. And as I said in the little pre-setup, I'm extremely curious. Could you please introduce yourself a bit and solve one of my most interesting riddles for this year, because it's a new year? You are the riddle, number one, such as what made you move after over 20 years in Microsoft?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you first for inviting me here today with all of you. So I do appreciate it. I'm Dina Apostolou, and I am at Contentful, as you called out. I moved from Microsoft 1 year ago, actually, exactly. So it was a big move after spending 2 decades there, which I hold Microsoft near and dear to my heart, and had just an amazing ride and time over the past 21 years that I worked there. I headed product marketing for Contentful, and I have just had the pleasure of really working with this global team, this business that was founded nearly 7 years ago. Our co-founders really saw a need in the market around digital building, and building for mobile, building for web, experiences. And what I really latched onto in terms of why I moved over, and having a marketing background, marketing is near and dear to my heart. And one of the things that I've been really thoughtful about in my moves, even within Microsoft, are the experiences that I can go and gain, but also the experience that I've gone through in making technology decisions as a buyer, as an influencer in that decision mix.
Mm-hmm.
And so that played heavily into one of the considerations for my move. And so if you were to look at my history at Microsoft and working in sales tech, MarTech,
I did.
moving over to business applications as well, there was intent and a purpose there around helping to define or shape the experiences that we're providing to end users and to businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And that absolutely played into my decision in shifting over to Contentful. It's a different approach for solving for it from where I moved from, but it really locks in and really works together. It's just moving from more of an application and a product, a strategy and set of portfolio offerings to platform. And that's where I really saw some incredible opportunity for me to go learn, to be part of shaping our platform strategy and where we're headed in terms of helping builders of all types. And we'll talk about that, but builders of all types to be able to solve for digital experiences and the content that powers those.
Wow. So you have been in several roles, and always in an important, as I was working close as an external with Microsoft from time to time. So you were involved also in that time span when Microsoft acquired LinkedIn.
Right? That's right. That was a really exciting time, just nearly 5.5, 6 years ago. That happened. That was actually during one of the transitions. And actually what was really interesting is, as a customer to LinkedIn, before helping to facilitate and bring together a go-to-market in the first integration after the acquisition, we were their largest enterprise customer. And that was exciting for working with our sales organization to help them to think about B2B selling. And LinkedIn was a great solution and experience for bringing selling and social selling into the spirit of how we engaged with our accounts and prospects. And so that, again, is a great example of where the firsthand experience, working with the sales team between sales and marketing, working with customers in a digital form, right? And then being on the other side of it of how do you bring that into a portfolio and an offering to extend out into the ecosystem.
And now Contentful is the another fantastic game changer.
It is. I think it's this secret weapon that, it may not be as broadly known, but no, if anyone is in the CMS and WCM space, I'm sure they have come across Contentful. But like I said, it's a different approach to solving for digital. You could think of it as the tools and the platform with the capabilities to help those that are developers, right, or on the engineering side that are building those digital pipelines, right? And it's also an offering set that allows for those non-technical roles to be able to come into that product experience and work together, right? So you have to think about those that are editing and creating the content for those experiences. And that's really where the magic happens, is when you start to bring these cross-functional teams together that don't typically work together. And I think that's where the firsthand experience from my side has played into this in working in marketing for my career, which is where you see the need to solve for, I would say, workforce, you could say productivity, how marketing works with production type resources, how marketing works with development resources to get jobs done. Absolutely critical. And that's what Contentful is there to help solve for.
Cool.
So now we are talking.
If we are talking,
got a big frog in my throat.
Let him out.
Gone now. Now that we are all talking about content and CX and social selling, and what is the contribution of content there?
Yeah, that's
it. How did it change? Especially, it's even more interesting, probably.
Yeah. Well, as we know, right, to compete, to survive, to stay alive in today's market, businesses need to meet customers where they are, right? And the reality is that we are in a digital first world, and so the experience needs to surpass any surface area, whether it's a site, whether it's a screen, whether it's a digital display, right? Whether it's a smart speaker. And so in order for businesses to survive and serve digital first humans, they need the ability to rapidly and iteratively design and deliver those experiences. And then whether those experiences are delivered for consumers, customers, partners, suppliers, employees, right? That's what's really required. And so our perspective is that the mindset of customer experience teams has changed. And the workforce is reinventing themselves, just like, the customers that we spend time with. And they need a new playbook for thinking about the digital first operating model. And it requires those individuals, those teams, those leaders with the capacity and the motivation to build. And so the builders are the ones who are really creating the future, not just developers. Business users have the aptitude and the appetite to build as well. And that's really important. And we see that in modern direct-to-consumer companies who are engaging customers in a whole new way. I mean, I think Nike is a great example. I'd love to talk about Ikea, even Chanel. Traditionally, in-store experience shifting more to how, digital signage is used to kind of create really compelling experiences in high-end luxury retail. And so as we think about, where Contentful fits within customer experience, as I'm talking through this, the winning approach requires this new generation to build. And I say this new generation of builders to build in a smart way. And it really starts first with the mindset. And we talk about this if you spent time, attending our events or spending time with any of us, we talk about this in terms of the builder ethos, right? It's really a mindset. And that's where this digital playbook starts. It's with the people within the business, right? It's not just a technology decision, but it is ensuring that there is those that think and act like builders, individuals who are developers, but are team managers that come together to create these compelling experiences. And these can reside, right, in any type of business unit, whether we're talking about IT, digital strategy, commerce, marketing, sales, any type of business unit. these roles are falling under this new definition of builders, and one of the things that I'm most familiar with is obviously being in marketing and product and brand managers, right? Launching products and services across channels. But let's not use that as the only example of where CMS fits into CX. You could think about legal teams, right? Updating terms of service to ensure compliance and convey policy, right? You think about, human resources, right? Help articles, FAQs, chatbots for serving employees and end customers. And so that's where we have to rethink that CMS is not just about the traditional ways that we think about just serving end consumers, but different audiences of suppliers, employees, partners as well. And so the builder aspect is really critical. So you take a step back, it's not the typical builders that you would see just in IT or in marketing departments. And so that's where CMS is really changing the game for customer experience in a much broader way. I told you this is going to be interesting with a cat.
Yeah, it will be fun.
Always happy to see the kid.
That's good. That makes it authentic. Yeah. Which is important too, isn't it?
Authenticity.
This is coming to the question, what type of builder would a cat be? To do
Kind of knock stuff off of shelves.
Cat content is important, and so we live it.
Yeah, that's for sure. I produce enough cat content. That's for sure. We have a whole Slack channel for cats, just so you know, at work here. So we love it. We share cat photos and videos nonstop. They definitely make for a good experience. Yeah. But at the end of the day, in this digital first world, we think that everyone, regardless of where you reside in your organization, has to think like a builder, and they have to put the customer, whoever that customer is, at the center of the experience. And so with the right set of tools, with the right set of technologies, the correct processes in place, and the buy-in and levels, we think that this is where those that have the builder mindset are going to be the ones that go further, push the boundaries and set actually the standard of what digital first can accomplish. And they will be the leaders in their markets. And so that's just context there. And I think that, CMS has obviously been around for a long, long time. But when you think about it in terms of a builder mindset, it has a new, fresh, understanding. And that's where our point of view is on that builder mindset.
Thinking like a builder absolutely makes a lot of sense. How about thinking like a consumer, though? How much of the time when you are in your private life do you find yourself looking at advertisements, marketing campaigns, sales pitches, whatever, and relating them back to your experience in business and thinking, I'm being sold to, or that's an interesting way of going about it.
Yeah.
How do you relate? How do you make the two work together?
Yeah,
it's bring that into your professional life.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, as a consumer, I have the same expectations, right? I expect consistency, regardless of whether I'm on my phone or, my laptop. I expect, kind of consistency, whether I'm looking at a, TV ad or Instagram, I expect that kind of consistency. Now, it's interesting because I think maybe not differently, but I think a little bit more deeply about this in terms of the form of the messages and the content. And that's because content is really the core ingredient. It's not a last mile of the execution, right? Content is what is communicating your message. So it's educating your readers. It's making you stand out from the competition. But what's really interesting is you think about that in the different experiences. I think that around different voice devices in my household. I think that around gaming, especially as I'm watching my kids, want to buy new skins, right? Or add-ons, right? I think about those kind of experiences a bit differently now because I would have thought about content as the production side when really it is the messaging, right? And that's where the complexity comes in this, is that delivering content consistently, right, across all of these emerging channels is becoming really tricky, right? Because it comes in the different forms, right? It's text, it's images, it's videos, it's product information, it's branding, it's signage, it's voice, and so it needs to be created quickly, assembled in the right way. And it has to be consistently showing up multi-channel, to represent your products and brands. Content and channel proliferation has created new obstacles as well to get your message out to differentiate itself. Because you start to expect or want to communicate and seek the attention of the same audience. And so that also produces some complexity around creating and managing and orchestrating content in a multi-screen, multi-channel world, because of the more specialized roles that are required to go produce the content. You think about content that's sitting in digital signage versus, your wearable, right? And then the content needs context. So the content needs to be informed by customer data, right? It needs to be intelligent. It needs to have signals to be responsive to the end users, regardless of that digital experience. And so this is where it's really becoming, challenging. And because businesses have been managing this in a distributed environment, the past generation of tools weren't able to manage in an era that organizations were needing to think about the consistency of their messaging across all of these channels. They were kind of addressing it for a single purpose, a single channel. But the importance is about you write it once and reuse it in multiple places, right? Mm-hmm. The reuse of content is so critical to drive for the consistency, and then the context of that content to drive for the personalization, right? And the relevancy to the different end users. And so as a consumer, right, coming back to that, like, that's what I expect. And now I see it from the lens of how, a platform, that is a API first can help to solve for that works with other systems of intelligence to provide the right context for how that message shows up. So that's where I kind of take the past, my past preview of experience, and as I think about this in kind of a multi-channel world now.
You more or less already touched it. What would your answer to Robert?
Over time, too.
Hi, Robert, by the way.
What was that?
Hi, Robert, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding. Hi, Robert. Yep, that's right. You're absolutely right. Like, that's been part of some of the challenge, is that the content doesn't always have, I think what I had said, like, it needs context, right? And I think that's where it has to be intelligent and be informed by those consumer preferences, right? And so that is what starts to move the dial and starts to differentiate the brands that stand out and that understand and really get, what digital first means. And I think that's an important point of content orchestrating from intelligent systems and working together to create that experience that is really personable, to that end audience.
Yeah, Robert has a follow-up comment where he says, content, there it is right there. Content and experiences need to be relevant, relatable, and respectable, which is basically what you just said.
Yeah.
Another R word that I would put in there would be resonant. It needs to really ring in with the consumer of it. To truly have a lasting effect. But that is the addition. When you add relevant, relatable, and respectable, hopefully you get that resonance.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he waves back.
Happy New Year. Stay healthy.
Happy New Year.
With regards to this comment, so he basically touches a pet peeve of mine here. So I'd answer here, experiences are always relevant. The engagement that creates it in myself probably is not. So what I think that, what do you say to that? So what I do think is that too many people, marketers or not, pundits like us as well, confuse engagement with experience.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, again, the experience of being part of the discipline of marketing, I can totally see that as well, which is you never want to be like the one-hit wonder, but the engagement, right? And thinking through the engagement, right? What is that longer? Again, the ongoing active engagements, right, start to make up the experience. And I think that's what you're probably getting to there, right?
Oh, you learned well from Paul.
We've spent some time together. But that's right? But who determines that? Right?
Yeah.
The end user determines that.
Yeah.
Right? So as a business, you can design, your journey, you can design your workflow, but at the end of the day, the consumer is going to dictate that, experience that they want with you, with your brand.
He loves you or he leaves you. That's very close to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
With regards to what you said before, with all those different types of creators, some of them creating FAQs, supportive documentation as well that you mentioned. So in how far do you see the lines of CMSs or content management and knowledge management blurring?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I mean, I think 3 ways to kind of put to spirit, Contentful and how a platform can help. And we kind of think about this in a few different inflection points, right? You could say in kind of the front end cycle, global marketing, we think about the active, kind of commerce and that aspect, an inflection point that a brand, a product and service would have with the customer. And then in terms of ongoing support, a knowledge base. And so that is really, really quite interesting. For us, it's definitely an area. And again, I think about knowledge management and knowledge base in kind of 2 forms, right? There's the internal side of it, right? And serving, your employees, your partners, your suppliers, right? And then there's, supporting your end users. And so for us, I think that developers have actually, and I think where you're trying to go here is around how does knowledge management fit in, with CMS, right? And I actually think developers have redrawn the boundaries of those markets, really, when you think about it across WCM, ECM, PIMS, DAMs. And we see that with how we're serving customers across different markets and helping builders to solve for UI, workflows, content storage, orchestration, delivery. And so it's not to say it's a replacement to a knowledge management, but it's definitely a piece of that composable stack to solve for, a knowledge-based scenario. And we see that, with, customers like Atlassian, single source of truth for a growing list of support services, and whether, it's you serving your, employees across teams, or whether it's them serving their end users with FAQ, help articles, product information, their portal is powered by Contentful with granular permissions to drive consistency, ownership, updates, and quality. TELUS is another great example, Canadian telco. And, it's more about supporting the launch of their digital support portal for its customers. And those customers are, able to autonomously and quickly, resolve their issues, right, without having to call in to support, but because of the knowledge base and how they're using, a platform within their tech landscape. And it's reducing their support costs by 90%, by doing that. So it's not a replacement, but it's an additive. And I think that's the benefit, of, this composable architecture underneath the platform that fits with other technology, right? So it's about how does it connect with the tech stack that's required to solve for those different use cases. In knowledge management, in knowledge base, we absolutely see that a lot across our customer base.
What type of tech do you see then? Because, well, now we have a content management system or a content management platform, a knowledge management system with a platform. And then we need to be able to retrieve this whole raft of knowledge, which is probably not all in one place. Then all of a sudden we have an enterprise search as well in the picture.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to be the one that consults on what technology stays and which stuff goes. I think that's really up to a customer to figure out how to get the most value out of, their technology investments. But I would say, the reality is that we know that businesses are moving to more of an approach of a modern tech stack, right? And it's not like an all-in-one, right? There aren't many that are going to be around much longer that can just be the all suite in one. And so, with a platform, we think that, fully composable platforms that are open source make it easier. Again, it goes back to the audience that we care about, which are the builders, right? Builders that are building, like I said, for those digital experiences, building custom applications, extending the back end, connecting to any cloud service like search, commerce, asset management, personalization. We have those sets of builders, right? And then we obviously have those that are like building the campaigns, right? And the content for those, campaigns that are going to be pumped through those types of digital pipelines. And so when we think about this in terms of a fully composable platform, we think about this as giving them the ability to create and structure content in a modern SaaS editorial type experience and federate it from other systems using APIs. And so no matter what type of content you're talking about, whether it resides in a content platform, content is always just an API call away, right? So whether, with the extensibility, a need to get VR images, right? Able to get banners, whatever it may be, the API allows anything else to be digitally represented. And so that's where a fully composable platform can help to work, right, within a compiled tech stack. Now, it's up to, I think, a customer, right, or a partner that's working with those customers to say, here's the best technologies that are going to help to solve for quicker composition, accelerated, building of the digital that needs to be done, depending on whatever the use case is that customer is solving for. And so, again, content in our minds is a core component to help think about building and assembling these components for a composable stack. And we think that this seamless interaction with having a platform that's composable can help to ensure that there's more seamless interaction between the technology. And again, like I said, it goes back to, what are you solving for? Is it the knowledge management and knowledge-based scenario? Is it commerce? Is it global marketing? And the composition of different technologies is going to, play a role there in that.
So this is beyond the concept of a headless CMS.
It is. Yes.
Can you explain better how?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so headless, headless is a thing, right? Headless has worked, and been around, and it's the structure of, working with the structure of the internet and removing the need for retrofitting and being able to deliver, new ideas and content to different types of devices. It's been around, right? It provides the backend functionality for mobile applications, connected objects, right? And so headless CMS addressed the delivery of content, and we were a pioneer in this, really. We were the first to think about headless CMS as a thing. And our premise is that delivery has been solved by what headless has been able to do and mock services. However, it didn't really solve for some of the content silos and the lack of connected content across the backend systems and workflows and teams. And so in our mind, that's how we're going beyond headless, right? We're not saying headless, isn't there. Of course it's there. That's a delivery aspect, but there's many other aspects. I'm going to say there's the assembling, there's the orchestration, there's like, how do you take action and iterate your content based on, the insights and the data that you have from the use of that. And so our approach is that this platform provides the flexibility to go and enable the back end content orchestration, the operations, the delivery of content-driven experiences. And that's where we're helping businesses to think about a platform, and you can build and compose that tech stack in a modular way. And that's what our customers love about Contentful. That's what, our partners like as part of being part of our ecosystem, right? Because they can help to go build specialized apps as they need to for specific personas that have specific jobs to be done, right? They can use Contentful to fit within their workflows, right? To augment their workflows, to serve internal teams, not even just end users, but a lot of developers are using Contentful, right? In terms of workflows and creating a UI for teams that are working on content production, right? Or the delivery of content. And again, those teams could be in legal, right? They could be in HR. They could be in marketing, of course. But that's the way that we think about a content platform helping to solve for going beyond, I'm going to say, solving for what Headless solved for.
Yeah, so sounds good to me. I mean, all of us here, I think, have experience in creating content of some kind or other, but we all know that
on it, right?
Yeah, we're doing it right now, but there are different kinds. And if you're primarily a writer of legal boilerplate, you don't necessarily know what the creative content is out there. If you're mostly a writer, you don't know what visual has been created. And very often you'll have those builders, those creators working at cross purposes or recreating something that already exists. So it sounds like you've solved not just the delivery issue, but as you said before, the orchestration issue, making sure that everybody knows what assets are available in the first place.
That's right. I mean, think about it like production and campaign management. So if we come back to more of the marketing use case, Matches Fashion is, I think, a really interesting example. I'm sure Ralph and Thomas, you may be familiar with Matches Fashion, but they're a well-established retailer and of luxury men's and women's clothing and home goods for hundreds of designers. And so they've been around for 30 or so years. And most of the revenue comes from online. And so even before the pandemic, they were already thinking about how do we improve like our marketing campaigns. We have to think about this in terms of mobile apps and websites. And it was complex because they're serving customers in like 170 or so countries and across different currencies. And so you think about that, you think about their company sites and their apps in different languages as well. And so what they were looking for is a more agile way to help their marketing teams operate. And they were actually so reliant on their technical colleagues and the lengthy time and process to building any new piece of content because there was this like huge backlog that was sitting with their technical teams. And so it wasn't giving them the ability to do like the weekly refreshed homepage or a new article or a campaign banner. And all of it was going into this like, this backlog. And so I really, like what I've been learning about Matches in terms of this marketing use case, because really while Contentful is built and has been built from the grains of helping developers to get in there are guardrails built into Contentful that allow those non-technical roles to come in and to work independently of their engineering colleagues. And this was a huge step forward for Matches Fashion because they were able to go and train their campaign colleagues and the editors of content to be able to go in to Contentful and to make updates to marketing forms of content. And since then, they're able to now run more marketing campaigns across their mobile apps, their websites. Their messaging is staying more consistent as a result of that, because it's not going into just one pipeline of one team or source of resources on the technical side. And as well, they're able to reuse that content across their channels. So it's not just going out for campaign. They can actually think about it in terms of like their global marketing sites, right? So pre kind of commerce, as well, and campaigns, and the back end side of like cross sell, reusing content after someone has purchased something as well. So anyways, that's one example to think about like a specific use case for production and content management, and how a platform is used for different types of builders.
Yeah, I was curious on my favorite furniture store which is not only a furniture store. But what did you do for Ikea? Which problem did you solve there? Hi, Kat.
This is gnocchi.
Gnocchi?
Welcome.
Delicious.
Aloha.
That's
But
right.
He seems to be shy.
He is not super shy with me, but maybe with loud noises. I'm not saying that you're loud or anything, but it can happen from time to time. Yeah, it's a good cat. Good cat. IKEA. So with IKEA, IKEA isn't just solving for one product line. The thing that IKEA has really done remarkably well is their inspiration rooms, right? They're not just selling like this sofa, like right then the catalog of furniture or the lamp, in terms of lighting, but they're actually, the inspiration room is actually being powered by Contentful, right?
Wow.
And from there, you're able to see this, kind of obviously this broad array of products for a specific, inspiration or room, within your house or residence. And that's how Contentful is helping, in terms of the output. In terms of the input, you can think about that. How complex is that, right? With one, it's showing up on a website, but number two, a mobile application. Number three, you think about the product information, catalog, for all of those items. You're thinking about the merchandising of those pieces, and the images to support each one of those products, right? So the ability for having kind of a single place for these teams to work together, right? To coordinate that assembly, the creation, the delivery of those in terms of the end user experience is how they're using Contentful. So it's very much about the single source of where that content is coming together and how it's being orchestrated and, I should say assembled first and then orchestrated and delivered into that inspiration room.
With regards to that, so there's this current buzzword, this metaverse buzzword, which probably has an impact on content and delivery of content as well. How do you see the trajectory there, or the change of necessary content?
Did you say a buzzword?
He didn't.
Oh, I thought you said a buzzword. And I was like, what was that buzzword?
Metaverse.
What was that?
Metaverse.
Oh, metaverse. Yeah.
Not meta, but metaverse.
Yeah, that buzzword. Okay. I was like, did I miss something there? I saw a cat's tail like flying in front of me.
I missed it, so okay.
Okay.
Thought that was a company name, not a buzzword, but
No. Well, the company name was only the first two syllables.
I see. So how is it playing in towards content? Is that where you're going with this one, Thomas?
Okay, so
hello,
Esteban. Instead of we have still some fantasy, isn't it? Like lovely.
Hey, it's
start
just
a year.
Christmas, so.
Buzz fantasies, yeah.
It's holes in our balloons.
That he, with his background, thinks a lot more about.
He has nailed it. No, let's the types of content are changing. Let's put it away from fantasies or buzzwords or what we have increasingly is where we came from the written word. And we came to pictures. Once we had them, then the pictures
inspirational rooms.
People started to talk each other, which is yet another funny thing that they sometimes do. And then we are coming into technologies like AR and VR, which are all being put into probably the mix. So in how far do you see a need to support that, or different types of creators / builders, different types of delivery?
And I think that's the reality, is that we're saying, hey, content comes in different forms, right? And with an API type of mentality, you can accommodate for it, right? So depending on where content is going in terms of form, form factor and whether it's needed for, I'm going to say gaming, avatars, digital products for avatars, or you're talking about AR, VR. I don't think that's really changed. I just don't know that everyone kind of looked at it in that same way. But I think that we're already there, in terms of being able to accommodate for brands that are going there. We do have customers. We do have those customers in the gaming and, like I said, high-end luxury as well. Those that have actually gone away from using as much inventory in their stores, right? That have actually closed physical locations, and then they're requiring more on digital signage and experiences like that. So like we were already helping customers, and that goes back to those with kind of that digital first mindset and thinking about content in a different way. And so I think that's where the emerging technology, or I'm going to say a platform and a composable stack can help those businesses to go there, to deliver the content in a better and more interactive way.
And that will.
So big praise here. So
he agrees.
And we're done with that buzzword.
Okay. We are done with that buzzword, right? But how to interact with content, sorry. How does that change this interaction?
How does it change?
Yeah. How does it change right now? Does it change?
I don't know that it does. I'm like, content was already showing up in a multi-channel form, right? I think the difference here, though, is that you're not having to create the content for that end channel or that specific digital touch point. What we're getting into is that, like, you can create it once and reuse it across whatever that digital endpoint and that digital endpoint is that's in, that's engaging with your consumers, right? Your employees. And so that's more of the mentality there, is that you can do it a lot more efficiently. You can do it smart, in a smarter way. You can do it in a faster way if you do it right from the onset versus thinking about content at the output of your production cycle.
I just saw it in the on one of my in the head cinema type things, no headless, but inside my head, such as what a difference it makes for IKEA and for the IKEA customer to have there an inspirational room, to have all the informations, to get some stuff in virtual reality, such as how could my kitchen look like?
Yeah.
And to go to the shelves and ask a clerk, which is quite common if you go to the more low budget products, and they could directly help you, because the part of the knowledge base, which is so much a challenge to a lot of other using organizations, is right there, and he can answer, you are quoting that product, you find it in that shelf, and this is what you should go for, because this little screws are always a killer, and we can help you immediately with that. So there is a complete a dream come true for me as user, that I can get a complete new experience out of the technology behind it.
Yeah. I mean, and what you were getting to there is, like, with IKEA, it's, the curated inspiration room, right? I think that is absolutely drawing, more revenue as a result of that. You look at Wayfair, right? I like using Wayfair as an example in terms of, their virtual room, right? And I think that's where you're going there too, is that, like, content's being used in kind of a smart way within that experience, right? To be able to drive towards that outcome, sell more of it, right? It doesn't require shipping a rug to you and then you realize you don't like it and sending it back, right. It's helping to kind of progress through that experience. And so those are, you say, like, what's really new and different? I think it's just how it's being used, right? It's being used in a smarter way in terms of those experiences.
And I think there is a lot of potential, especially when I see that a lot of websites should not be graveyards, but they are more or less, due to the backlog you described so very vividly, they are, for some organizations, are some graveyards, and they get challenges. Yeah, and this is a step forward.
Content arriving, Ralph.
I do not suppose that somebody is placing an order right now. So looking forward that my wife is taking the call, because it's 7:45 at our end.
I was gonna say, are you gonna need a fax? Are you gonna need a fax soon?
I'm not a member of the German health system, which need a lot of telefaxes. Honest, I'm a bit ahead. I'm not.
Well, that's good to know.
I'm old.
You had some carrier pigeons.
That old, yeah. And I'm digitally transformed. This is why we are here on stage. But it's a good one, and you touch exactly an aspect where you come in with your brilliant solutions and the mindset, such as a young company sitting in one of the countries which has a lot of problems with the digital transformation and is yet enabling worldwide with multiple languages and a very smart approach. You do it once and you get a lot of usability out of it over all channels and all, let's say, end user touch points. This really makes me tick. Yeah. This really gets me excited.
Yeah, it is exciting. And I love hearing, an individual on my team was just telling me about some time that he's spent with a customer. I won't mention the name, but Sweden company, railroad, and digital signage, right? Talking to them about their use case and need for using digital signage in a different way for ticketing, and so like, again, it's like those kind of traditional, markets, in businesses, and being able to do things just a lot more efficiently, in the future, and helping them to kind of rethink that approach. So we're seeing it across those that are really digitally savvy and those that had never thought that they would, go kind of full in with, they're probably thought that brick and mortar was going to stay around for a long time. And so there's like this spectrum. But I think regardless of that, it's the mindset of being digital first and what that means. Because at some component, every business is going digital. There's some form of digital that is serving their business, and that is going to be core to their strategy.
Right. And sooner or later, there will be that business that finds a truly unique way to use digital content, and we'll see real change.
That's right.
Yeah, we're always looking forward to that so we can talk about it. In the meantime, we're just moving the world along to a somewhat more manageable form.
Yeah.
What is a somewhat manageable form? Now we get a real conversation up and running here.
The kind that doesn't give you paper cuts. Yay, digital.
Yes. Heard it by paper.
Well, speaking to each other doesn't give paper cuts as well.
You're right. But if we see now the challenge to interact with a help searching existing customer and a curious potential buyer, both are on the same website and both have access to the same, let's say, content, but in different use. The one to be curious and get him to buy, the other that he has an application problem, such as make my thing run, which I bought, and you just help him with more or less the same content. Yeah,
that's right. That is absolutely right.
And now the other one comes from this is basically what Esteban and Robert are talking about to quite an extent. What we do have is problems, challenges, jobs to be done, however we want to call them.
Yeah.
And we perhaps have solutions. These are the two main things. And the third entity that is involved is the channel. And depending on how I start to interact, the content needs to look different and the delivered content needs to look different. This is basically what I wanted to get at with the buzzword before that I won't mention again in order to avoid Esteban's eternal wrath. So how do you see don't you see that there's any change in the types of contents that need to get created to support all those different channels? And what other channels will we see? I mean, looking, content is telling a story, hopefully. Yeah, else it's meaningless. So it's telling a story. So if I'm now sitting there with my VR goggles and are looking for some funny type of furniture, maybe I need a new desk. Actually, I need a stand-up desk with an integrated tripod so that I can raise my
camera.
What is it called? This gadget I'm looking at right now, the camera.
Camera, that thing.
The camera and the teleprompter. This is what I wanted to say. That the angles stay right. Yeah. So delivering or imagining a solution for this challenge, finding information about this, surely will look different whether I ask a chatbot, whether I ask a video bot, so an in-person thing, or whether I immerse myself into my a distribution, a generated office room that I have here right now around me. So that would all look, it's the same content, the same story. Well, it's not the same content, it's the same story, different content for the same solution. How will that work?
But it comes back to, the source of that content, right? And that's what we're saying is that, depending on how you structure the content, how you define that content, you house it in one spot instead of housing it in your system for chatbots, right? Your system for CRM, your system for knowledge management, you're housing it in a platform. So it becomes an API call to that content, depending on whether you need the image, you need the text, right? You need the video to support, to support the output of it. It's different. So now it's like you have to think about those things, right? You have to plan your content up front as you're thinking about what are the digital channels you're trying to solve for today and potentially in the future. But being able to write it in one place, right? And then it's rewritten for those other channels is that platform approach, right?
So what you're basically saying is that we are having kind of a different definition of content. So you're basically taking the whole story prepared for the different challenges or channels, not challenges, the whole story prepared for the different channels as one piece of content, whereas I seem to cut them into different pieces of content.
Well, there's association, right? There's tagging, like there's ways of doing that, right? That show an association of what you're talking about. But at the end of the day, kind of where we started was that, content is, it comes in different forms, right? And so it depends. Like if you're a business and you're selling a tripod, for your camera, you're going to have some deep product information, right? There you go, right? And you're probably going to have an image of it, right? And you might have a video that shows how to attach, right? So you're having kind of this association, right? And the tagging associated to that tripod. And so that's kind of how we look at being able to assemble the content for that tripod in an intelligent way. And then where does it need to show up, right? Is where, again, that is that digital experience that is being built out for whether that's going to show up in, knowledge beta support channel, whether it's going to show up in the product specs, right? Your commerce experience.
Or if there is a case study or a customer story that mentions that product, there might be a link to those factors.
That's right.
Because when it comes down to it, at least from my point of view, to some extent, the medium and the message are inextricable.
Yeah.
There's a reason why a movie is different than a book.
Right.
So there's a reason why, technical information is different from a photograph.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the content management system supports all of that if it's done right. And
Right.
from what I can hear, Contentful is getting close to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good job. We're glad we have you.
Well, can't say it's all me. And as Robert says,
Yes, you can.
hey, where does it?
Yeah,
Where
as long
does
as
it?
you're here, take the credit. Take
Yeah.
the credit.
Well, thank you. You're the ones that invited me, so I'm here. I showed up. I might have been your first pick, but anyways, I'm here. But Robert asked a good question. Like, where does AI automation play into this? And it absolutely does. So, think about this as a content creator, I'm going to say, and an editor. And so we have some apps that are kind of pre-built apps that help you either launch your campaigns or create those campaigns. And now what I will say is that we've simplified some of those jobs to be done to a certain degree, but you can connect to other cloud services for content optimization, translation, right? And so that's where, again, this composable stack and using a platform in that way can help to connect to those other types of cloud services, so that we're not saying, hey, you have to have it all done here within Contentful, but we absolutely work with those personalization, translation, optimization, and testing engines. And that's our partner in our tech ecosystem that we work with. And that comes with really helping to solve for those specific needs. Same thing with analytics, like we're not doing all the analytics on the content within Contentful, but that's where, plugging into Google, right? Analytics and other forms that allow customers to get that intelligence that they need that writes back to, again, where that is being maybe stored in terms of a CDP, right? And then again, the, content system is obviously then taking context from that. So it ends up becoming a pretty big kind of orchestration element, in terms of where content needs to show up. And so we actually talk about it in terms of jobs that need to be done that are kind of supporting the value of content. And we think about it in terms of, assembly, orchestration, delivery, iteration. We kind of think about that flywheel. So whether you're a team of building, for the digital, or you're building the content to feel that digital pipeline, it's a different way of building and these teams working together. But we do look at there being kind of this ability to have a rapid movement between those different cross-functional teams when you're using kind of the composability of a platform and using APIs that connect really well with other cloud services.
We are approaching the hour. How's your time looking?
How's my time?
Yeah, your time. Whenever we are here,
we're trying to be respectful. Don't want to hold you if you need to be someplace.
I have a few more minutes.
Okay. Then out of curiosity, my last one.
Yeah.
Before we probably get into Ralph's favorite one.
Okay.
Where do you see the limits? We talked about campaigns, multi-channel campaigns. You used the term CDP right now. Let me use individualization, what other people call hyper-personalization. So how does, in how far can that scale with content?
Well, I think we touched on some of that earlier, just around it's not about how Contentful can solve for all of that, right?
But I think it's Contentful in particular, in general.
Yeah, but I think it's like, how we solve for that, as technology providers, kind of working together. And I think that's an important element of having kind of an open source as much as possible to be able to help for those that need to go and build for those highly unique or highly, personalized scenarios where, out of the box just isn't going to work and cut it. I don't see limits though to how Contentful. I mean, that's not one of the things. I mean, we kind of talk about it in terms of your space and how you structure that space with content. So I don't see limits in terms of what needs to be done, and whether you're talking about, location, translation, optimization, personalization, those, there might be cloud service providers and other tech companies may have limits. But in terms of APIs and API calling, to those other services, I would say our scalability is very high. So instead of saying, hey, limitations, I don't look at limitations from what a platform can provide there to solve for those needs.
Okay, same thought here. I do think that the limitations are actually the content creators.
The people.
Yeah, the people. Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting if you start to look at a lot of job postings. You look at the workforce, especially in the past year. I don't know if you've noticed this. I was just kind of taking a look across one of our customers, and I was like, gosh, look at all these roles. It's like SEO, content, developer of apps, right? So you're seeing it on both sides. I actually see that there are some customers that we have that we're working with that are standing up. I think Wayfair is a good example. They're standing up a whole content operations, to be able to kind of power this because they want to move faster. And so they made some simplified decisions around the technology side. But again, like I mentioned earlier, it's not just about the technology, right? It's the process and it's the people. And so it's also like leveling it out. Like, how do you level it out to make it balanced across? Because you're absolutely right. A lot of businesses or a lot of customers that we see want to bring, or maybe they want those in-house resources, right? So they work with agencies, right? If they don't have the content production resources in-house, or they're working with agencies. But I am seeing some more of those types of roles, a lot of content roles pop up.
And I find this spectacular good, because with this, you have a lot more relation to the organization, to the customers, if they know the customers. And I don't need always an external agency, which has first to learn my job and my attitude. Yeah. So if it's coming from the inside and goes to the customer and is listening carefully, it's a lot more beneficial in my eyes. And seeing that your organization, for instance, has 123 open jobs gives me a clear hint that you want to help a lot, not only in growing, but also at your customers, that you would like to enable them to do the stuff by themselves. Which comes to my favorite question as we start in 2022, fresh and new, and you are the first one. What are your picks for this coming year in trends? Just give us 3 to 5 of your personal observations, what you think will happen.
Gosh, my personal observations. Well, first of all, I think it's going to become easier to adopt cats. No, just kidding. No, as people go back to work, no, I don't know. I'm not so sure about that one. My picks for this year. I think we're still going to see a pretty big shift. The pulse that I keep on is I love to see, brands of all types, those that, I'm a customer of and whatnot, and just to kind of see how their businesses are kind of reformed. I thought it was really interesting over the past, 18 months with the shutdown of, stores and brick and mortar. I think we'll end up seeing more of that just as kind of different ways to support online businesses and strong growth, especially around commerce. So I think that will continue to be kind of an exceptionally, kind of growing area, right? And it's not just like the standard side of commerce, right? You start to think about services, more of services and hitting those maybe more traditional markets and industries, FinServe, right? Banking, insurance. We're seeing some of that. It's really interesting actually how some of those markets are shifting towards digital. Insurance is really interesting right now. I don't know. My husband keeps a pretty good pulse on this one, and he's like, hey, it's different business models. Like, hey, you go and plug this into and it's monitoring your mileage, and it's basically like a consumption model, for insurance. I'm like, this is crazy, right? So it's like just different forms of business transformation. I think will continue to happen. So maybe traditional or maybe non-traditional ways, I think will continue to happen. And that's where it goes back to, I think there's some form of digital that every business is becoming. And that's where I see really the golden opportunity for those that are in there to help to support that transformation and in there for the long haul with customers. So that's a big thing there. I would hope to see kind of a trend of more, maybe travel picking up, but I'm not so quite sure in the next, 3 months that we're going to see that. But I'd love to see, tourism picking back up and things of that nature, and be getting out into the world and meeting with customers and meeting with my colleagues that I've never met face to face. I mean, just that in itself has been really interesting over the past year, joining a company and never meeting some of these individuals face to face. And so, I'd love for us to kind of get out of this and get into the other side of it and be able to kind of rebuild those personal connections. I don't know how much technology can help with that, right? We've pushed the boundaries have been pushed, right? But there's still an element, I think, of the relationship building that is missing, by just staying online.
Absolutely agree on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Famous last words, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
For me.
Thanks for having you here, Dina.
Well, I've loved it. So thank you,
great.
all of you.
And we actually managed to keep the audience intact till the end. So this is not too bad as well.
Let's call it helpful.
They might be sleeping at their desks, but they didn't log out. So we
I don't know. Whatever. We'll take it, right?
Yeah.
Probably we have been contentful today. But
I see what you did there.
Okay, so let's go backstage. Thanks to everybody who was here, and see you next week. And